Tardiness, a story of time and promises. Once, in the bustling city of Shravasti, there lived a wealthy elder. His house was a symbol of wealth and status, and its magnificence was renowned even from afar. Yet, in his heart, amidst the abundance, there lingered a sense of unfulfilled emptiness. Then one day, his fate changed when a monk of simple appearance named Upananda knocked on his door. Upananda spoke to the elder about the merits of giving, and his words resonated deeply in the elder's heart. The elder deeply respected Upananda. However, this would become the cause of a certain incident. This was the beginning of a path leading to a series of events where one learns the importance of time, promises, and consideration for others. This story reflects the universal truths that ancient teachings bring to the modern age. In the city of Shravasti, there lived an elder. This city was known for its wealth and prosperity, a place where many merchants and scholars gathered. The elder's house was especially magnificent among them, a symbol of his wealth and status. The garden was beautifully maintained, and the building itself was adorned with magnificent decorations. However, the elder himself could not find fulfillment in his heart. Despite his material wealth, his heart always felt empty, as if seeking something. One day, the monk Upananda came to this elder's house on his alms round. Although Upananda's appearance was simple, his demeanor was full of calmness and dignity. His eyes were gentle, and when they turned to the elder felt a strange sense of peace. Upananda spoke to the elder about the merits of giving. His words were concise, but contained deep meaning, resonating in the elder's heart.
Giving does not merely stop at the act of offering material things. It also purifies the giver's own heart and nurtures a compassionate mind.
Upananda's words were imbued with deep philosophy and wisdom for living. Then the elder greatly rejoiced, and as if to fill the emptiness in his heart, he immediately offered a meal and eagerly listened to Upananda's talk. He was moved by Upananda's words and found great value in using what he had for a better purpose.
Please accept my offering.
And he vowed to take refuge in the three treasures on the spot. A new light began to dwell in his heart. Later, when Upananda visited the elder's house again, the elder said to him,
Actually, the other day, I invited the world-honored one and his disciples to come to my house and have a meal. Venerable Upananda, please do come on that day as well.
As the elder said this, he expressed heartfelt welcome and respect. On the day of the invitation, Upananda came to the elder's house early in the morning and said to the elder,
Elder, I have an errand and must go to another house now. Please do not serve the meal to everyone until I return.
The elder was a little surprised by Upananda's words, but responded with respect. Upananda asked the elder this and left. Afterwards, the city streets were filled with the usual hustle and bustle, but a kind of stillness hung around the elder's house. The elder recalled Upananda's words and eagerly awaited the arrival of the Buddha and his disciples. He prepared a special meal to welcome them, and the house was cleaned and decorated. Meanwhile, the Buddha and his disciples arrived at the elder's house at the appointed time for the meal. Their group entered the elder's house with quiet, calm steps. The Buddha's appearance was serene, yet he possessed deep wisdom and compassion. The elder saw them and welcomed them with heartfelt respect and joy.
Elder, we are all here. Please give your greetings as the host.
The Buddha's group prompted the elder. Prompted by the monks, the elder bowed deeply and said,
Everyone, welcome. Today I have arranged a meal for you all. Please feel free to partake without hesitation. We will prepare, so please wait a moment.
The elder's voice was filled with deep joy and sincerity in welcoming them. This series of events took place in the lavish banquet room inside the elder's house. The room was adorned with luxurious decorations, and a large table was set for the meal to be served. However, the fact of Upananda's absence tugged at the elder's heart. He wished for Upananda to return soon, while preparing to entertain the Buddha and his disciples. The Buddha nodded at the elder's words and told his disciples,
Monks, the host elder's greeting has ended. Let us be seated for the meal.
The Buddha's voice was quiet and calm, yet had the power to change the atmosphere around him. His very presence brought a kind of stillness and peace. Everyone took their seats and waited, but the meal preparations never seemed to be ready. The room was enveloped in silence, and the monks quietly looked at each other. Although the rule was that the meal had to be finished in the morning, it was already close to noon. This situation was a bit unusual for the monks, and they were inwardly pondering how they should handle it. Meanwhile, the elder could not hide his worried expression. He wanted to provide the best possible hospitality to the monks, but Upananda's absence cast a shadow on his heart. He inwardly wished for Upananda's swift return. At that moment, the Buddha ordered his disciple Ananda.
Ananda, as there is no time, please tell the elder to prepare quickly.
Yes, world-honored one.
Ananda, receiving the Buddha's instruction, immediately stood up and approached the elder. His demeanor was calm, and he was choosing the right words to convey the Buddha's will. As time slowly passed in the room, Ananda approached the elder and conveyed the Buddha's words. Hearing Ananda's words, the elder's expression grew even more worried. He understood that the meal at his house was important for the monks, and the importance of keeping to the schedule. However, following Upananda's words was also an important duty for him.
Elder, at this rate, the world-honored one will return without accepting the offering.
When Ananda conveyed this to the elder said with a troubled face,
Actually, Venerable Upananda left on an errand and has not yet returned. When he left, Venerable Upananda told me to wait with the meal until he returns.
Hearing these words, Ananda showed a slightly perplexed expression. On one hand, he understood the elder's position and respected his sincerity.
I see the elder is also in a difficult position.
However, between the monk's religious rules and the situation the elder was placed in, he was faced with the problem of how to strike a balance. In the elder's dining hall, the monks were sitting quietly, and expectation and anxiety intermingled among them. They wondered why the meal had not yet begun, and were overwhelmed by the beautiful decorations and rich atmosphere of the elder's house. At that moment, the elder bowed deeply once more and expressed his apologies to the monks.
I am terribly sorry. I never imagined I would keep you all waiting in my own house. I am eagerly awaiting Venerable Upananda's return, but at the same time, my heart aches when I think of the inconvenience to you all.
He said. Ananda, though moved by the elder's words, understood the importance of keeping the monks' religious rules. He quietly stood up to report the situation to the Buddha.
World-honored one, it is a slightly difficult situation.
While Ananda was explaining the situation to the Buddha, a faint tension began to hang in the air in the elder's house. In Ananda's heart, thoughts were swirling about how to resolve this situation.
Let's start the meal for now.
Ananda urged 2-3 times. But they could not start the meal because Upananda had not yet returned. During this time, the monks sat quietly, but their hearts were filled with anxiety and questions. They too knew the importance of keeping the rules as monks. But at the same time, they were beginning to feel impatient with the prolonged waiting at the elder's house. This situation was having a similar effect on the elder. He felt a deep responsibility for this situation in his own house.
Am I in the wrong?
He stared at the gate of his house many times, searching for Upananda, but he was nowhere to be seen. The elder's heart sank heavily, unable to properly entertain his important guests. When Upananda arrived, it was almost noon.
Everyone seems to be here. Come now, let's have the meal. One cannot practice on an empty stomach.
With his arrival, a temporary sense of relief spread throughout the room. However, the delay caused by his lateness was a big problem for the monks. Because they were strict about keeping the rule of eating during the day, the delay made the time for the meal extremely limited. And when the meal finally began, Upananda finished his own meal in no time.
Indeed, the meal after practice is the most delicious.
His hurried manner of finishing the meal also affected the surrounding monks. They were placed in a situation where they had to eat quickly, and the meal was not satisfactory for them. Many monks were unable to enjoy the meal at a leisurely pace and could only eat a little. There were even some who could not eat at all. In this situation, the elder felt deeply sorry and repeatedly expressed his apologies to the monks.
I apologize. It is my responsibility.
However, while the monks accepted the elder's apology, they felt the pressure of keeping their own religious rules. In any case, the meal ended, and the Buddha and his disciples paid their respects to the elder and left. However, only Upananda did not try to leave and remained alone at the elder's house. He wandered around the garden of the elder's house, standing as if pondering something.
Could it be that What should I do?
Various thoughts crossed his mind, but he did not put them into words. That day was the 15th, the day of the Uposatha, when all the monks confessed their sins to each other. The Uposatha was an important day for the monks, an opportunity for them to show sincerity to each other and seek spiritual purification. However, Upananda never came to this meeting either. His absence was a great surprise to the other monks, and they questioned Upananda's behavior. Moreover, he had not reported this to anyone, so everyone was kept waiting by him for a long time again, and everyone was greatly inconvenienced. The meeting began in Upananda's absence, and the other monks confessed their sins to each other while deeply concerned about his absence. This meeting was shrouded in a heavier atmosphere than usual. Upananda's staying at the elder's house later became a topic of conversation among the monks, and various speculations spread among them.
What was he doing at the elder's house? Why didn't he participate in the Uposatha meeting?
Such questions raced through the monks' minds. On the other hand, the elder, though perplexed by Upananda's behavior, entertained him courteously. The elder felt that Upananda might be harboring some important thoughts, but he did not ask directly and respected it as his behavior and thinking as a monk. Indignant at Upananda's behavior, the monks said to each other,
Even though he is a monk, when invited to a meal, he's late. And after the meal, he stays long at that house and doesn't even come to the Uposatha. What in the world is this about?
Among them, voices criticizing Upananda's behavior grew louder. Disappointment and questions about Upananda swirled among them. The monks sought respect for the discipline and devotion they maintained daily. But Upananda's behavior betrayed that expectation. In response to this situation, the Buddha responded with deep compassion and understanding. He gathered all his disciples, including Upananda, and told them,
Monks, when you receive an invitation, you must not go to another house at that time.
If such a thing happens, know that it is a sin.
Not being punctual means making others wait and causing them trouble.
The Buddha's words contained both strictness and affection for those who received his teachings. The monks' gazes focused on Upananda, who was shrinking with hunched shoulders. At this time, Upananda deeply understood how much impact his actions had on the other monks. He reflected on his actions and repeated words of apology in his heart. He deeply regretted that his actions had caused trouble for the Buddha and the other monks, and he wished to apologize to them from the bottom of his heart. This event became a great lesson for the monastic community, and the monks came to have deeper understanding and respect for each other. The Buddha's teachings became a guidepost for the monks, and they vowed to take the lessons engraved in their hearts and apply them to their future practice. This story provides several important lessons to modern people. The first is respect for time. The story depicts Upananda not keeping his promised time and causing inconvenience to others. This teaches the importance of being punctual and respecting promises and schedules. In modern society, time management and respecting others' time form the foundation for building trust and respect. The second is consideration for others. Through how Upananda's actions affected the other monks and the elder, the story shows the importance of always being aware of how one's actions impact others. Understanding what kind of burden self-centered actions place on those around us is essential for nurturing empathy and compassion. The third is reflection and growth. At the end of the story, Upananda is depicted reflecting on his actions and apologizing. This suggests the importance of acknowledging mistakes and learning from them. Everyone has the potential to make mistakes, but by recognizing them and making improvements, we can grow. The fourth is the importance of community. The story shows how the actions of individuals affect the entire community. Understanding a sense of personal responsibility and one's role as a member of the group is necessary for building a harmonious and functional community. The fifth is learning from the Buddha's teachings. The Buddha's teachings provide important lessons through the story. This emphasizes the value of listening to the lessons of wise leaders and teachers and reflecting them in one's own actions. In the busy modern world, these lessons are particularly important, reminding us that individual actions affect the broader community and the importance of personal growth and empathy.